So good day, everyone. For today's episode, we will cover the third house and the 12 other derivative meanings of the third house. So as usual, for this series, each of the 12 episodes minus the introduction will be available for early access by my YouTube channel members. And for details on how to join this YouTube channel, please refer to the link that is in the description box below. So without any extra fluff, let's start with the 12 other combinations, derivative meanings wise, for the third house. So let me just locate the third house. Yep, so it's here. So the area of concern will be on the third house. And we can actually interpret this as the first from the third. Because if we actually count back the first from the area of concern, which is the third house in this case, we still get the third house. So the first from the third, this combination in terms of derivative houses and its meaning, this can be describing the condition or the appearance of the neighboring counties, states, and or surrounding countries, anything that is just right beside each other, like neighbors, because third house has got that neighbors kind of meaning or connotation to it. And another meaning that I can think of, which is the first from the third, will be the personal appearance, the outlook of, or the first impressions of one's siblings, aunts and uncles, cousins, and also neighbors as well. So it's a very descriptive kind of, or characteristics of, those people that I just mentioned, which are all third house related people in our lives. And another meaning that's more, should I say, more psychological and more abstract, this can be talking about the instinctive actions or the new beginnings taken from one's nervous energy, because third house can actually represent nervous energy. This may also represent perception or perceptive powers as well. So if I were to put it all together, this can be talking about the instinctive actions or new beginnings taken from one's nervous energy and or perception or perceptive powers. Okay, I hope this is clear. And so now let's quickly move on to the next house, and we will go in a clockwise direction around the house or around the houses. So let me just locate the second house. So the resultant house that we want to end up with is the third. And if we start from the area of concern being the second house, it is actually the second divisional house from the second. So in other words, this is what we call the second from the second. If we actually start off from the second house. And if I were to combine the second from the second in terms of its meaning in a derivative houses kind of way, this may be talking about the resources from the passing of or public enemy of one's spouse or partner. Now let me dissect a little bit more about why I said what I said. So the first part is the resources from. Okay, so is the second divisional house from the second to the third. And the second part of the sentence is about the passing of the public enemy of one's spouse or partner. So the very last part of the sentence is about one's spouse or partner, which is the 7th house. And if we count 8 houses away from the 7th, we get the 2nd house, which is our area of concern. And anything that is 8 divisional houses away talks about the passing of, or the legacy of, or the inheritance of, something along that line, of the public enemy, 7th house, of one's spouse or partner. So I just want to repeat here. It is the resources, second from the second, stemming from the passing of the public enemy of one's spouse or partner. I hope this is clear. And the second from the second can be talking about the money that can be earned through one's voice or throat. So money that can be earned is the 2nd divisional house through one's voice and throat, which is also the 2nd house meaning. So it's the second from the second. This is where we get the third house resultant in terms of equation. And last but not least, let me think of the second from the second. It is also the security that's derived from one's riches, the second from the second. And another derivative meaning of this can also be the innate wealth of a family friend. Family friend, I've already covered in previous episodes, because family friend is basically coming from the 2nd house, which is the 4th divisional house from the 11th. Anything that's 4th or 4 divisional house away from something can be about family. Since we are starting from the 11th, this is talking about friend or acquaintance. So family friend, I gotta count 4 houses ahead from the 11th. So I end up with the second. And the second of the second means that the innate wealth of that person, which is a family friend that I mentioned slightly earlier. And so now let's move on to the third possible combination within the whole scheme of things. And we will be starting from the area of concern being the 1st house. So the 1st house, we want to end up with the 3rd house. So it's 3 divisional houses away. So it's the 3rd from the 1st. What this can tell me is that this may be talking about the everyday environment that shapes one's personality. This can be one of the meanings, the 3rd from the 1st. This can also be talking about the communication style, which affects how others view oneself. 3rd from the 1st. This may also be talking about what you have to say about things is very upfront. So what you have to say about things is the 3rd house, because it's a communication-based house from the 1st, something that's very upfront, right in your face, okay? And another possible combination of 3rd from the 1st can be talking about all of the daily comings and goings of life that impacts your persona. This can be talking about the way that you present yourself, your mannerisms, and also behavior. So the first part of the sentence, all of the daily comings and goings of life, which is talking about the 3rd divisional houses, 3rd divisional house, sorry. And the second part of this sentence, impact your persona, the way you present yourself, your mannerisms and behavior, which is coming from the area of concern being the 1st house. And quickly moving on to the next combination, which is over here. So the area of concern now is starting from the 12th house. And if I count from the 12th house to the third house, it is 1, 2, 3, 4. It's the fourth from the 12th. And combining the fourth from the 12th in terms of meaning, we have the derived meanings of family traditions playing a huge part in one's bad or self-destructive habits or self-undoing. Another combination can be one's experience of family life informs one's understanding of charity and helping those in need, because the area of concern being the 12th house can be something that's very compassion and empathy driven. And so there's connotations of the 12th house itself being tied to charity of sorts or charitable institutions. Fourth from the 12th can also be talking about one's idea of home must bend to form one's need for solitude, because the 12th house, which is our area of concern, or what we have to start with, is really talking about being alone. Because 12th house has also got this connotation of doing time. This may literally be talking about being in jail or solitude confinement, or something that's more innocent, just being alone in solitude in your own space away from the world. That is also one of the 12th house meaning. And anything that's 4 divisional house away can be also talking about psychological foundation of something. And coming from the 12th house, which is our starting point or area of concern, this can be something that's oriented towards helping those in need with compassion and empathy. And the 12th house can be also talking about prayer and meditation as well. So if I were to combine these 2 parts together, the 4th from the 12th can be talking about the psychological foundation that is oriented towards helping those in need with compassion and empathy, or oriented towards prayer and meditation, something of that nature. And so now let's move on to the next combination. This time we are starting from the area of concern being the 11th house. So if I count from the 11th house to the 3rd house, because that is where we want to ultimately end up with, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is the 5th from the 11th. So combining the 5th from the 11th, these 2 parts, what I can think of will be creative self-expression to life when one is involved with groups and organizations. So the first part is talking about the 5th divisional house, and the second part of the sentence is really coming from our area of concern, which is the 11th. The 5th from the 11th can be also talking about the children, the pleasures, and the speculative investments or speculations in general of one's stepchildren or acquaintance or friends with benefits, associates, and also happy hour buddy. All those people that I just mentioned are really in essence talking about the 11th house. And 5 divisional houses away is really talking about the children, pleasures, and speculations, and also speculative or risky investments. Another combination of the 5th from the 11th can be also talking about chilling with friends, happy hour buddies, and associates. Because 5 divisional houses away is what you do during your downtime. So this can be chilling with those people that's 11th house related. And last but not least, this can be talking about one's artistic and creative pursuits that attracts an audience, because the 11th house talks about an audience. And anything that's 5 divisional houses away talks about one's artistic and also creative pursuits. And if we actually go to the next combination of things, this time we start off with the area of concern being the 10th house. And if I count from the 10th to the 3rd, it is actually 6 divisional houses away. So it's the 6th from the 10th, so to speak. And combining the 6th from the 10th, these two parts of the equation, what I can think of in terms of derivative house meaning will be that which serves one's recognition, social status, and public life. It can also be talking about the diseases and mind-body connection of one's maternal parents. This may also be talking about working with animals is what you do for a career. So people like vets or animal shelter workers, they usually have 6 from the 10th, which is the 3rd house that's emphasized in their chart, basically. This can be one of the meanings of it. And on another level, this can also mean that one's employees and co-workers, which is 6 divisional houses away, are the ones that call the shots in the office, which is the 10th house meaning in essence. And moving forward with this, now let's start off with the 9th house. So counting 7 houses away from the 9th house, we get the 3rd house. So it's the 7th from the 9th. If we talk about 7th from the 9th house, this can be the complement or the marriage partner of one's sibling-in-law. Because in previous episodes, I have talked about using again derivative houses. Siblings-in-law are actually ruled by the 9th house because it's the 3rd divisional house away from the 7th, which talks about the siblings of one's committed partner. So if we actually count 7 houses away, this actually talks about your sibling-in-law's marriage partner and their characteristics of it, or their persona and just give some clue. It gives some clues about that. Okay. Also, 7th from the 9th can be talking about one's receptivity to another's ideas about things. And this may also be talking about bringing along one's partner to overseas trips. Because anything that 7 divisional houses away talks about partner, and the 9th houses talk about someone going overseas internationally. And this may also be talking about partnerships, both personal and also business relations that form when one actually moves to a new place across borders or states. Something that is very 9th house in essence. And last but not least, if I were to think about the 7th from the 9th, this can also be talking about wanting a partner who has an equal interest in traveling or having some kind of same level of tertiary or adult education. The 9th house actually talks about universities or some form of adult learning. That's why it's usually tied to tertiary education. So if someone has got a 3rd house that's prominent, if we use derivative houses, it's the 7th from the 9th. someone who actually wants a partner that has equal interest in traveling, seventh from the ninth, or someone who has the same level of tertiary education as them, seven from the ninth as well. So if we actually move forward, if we actually start from the area of concern being the eighth house, counting from the eighth house as our base area of concern, it is actually 8 houses away from the eighth. That's how we end up with the third. Okay, eighth from the eighth. What this can tell me in terms of derivative house meaning is that this may actually infer the death and the rebirth process deriving from one's entanglements with the occult. Occult is very much 8th house stuff, and entanglements is also very much 8th house stuff as well. 8th from the 8th. This may also be talking about one's partner's values and financial situations is what one actually inherits after he or she passes, 8th from the 8th. Because the 8th house is really talking about partner's values and also financial situation. And the 8th house that's repeated again, 8th from the 8th, it's really talking about the inheritance portion of things, what one actually stands to gain in terms of inheritance. Another meaning that I can think of regarding the 8th from the 8th is really talking about crises that usually occurs when we depend on another's resources. Crisis is something that's 8 divisional houses away, and something that we depend on another's resources is also talking about the 8th house. In essence, so the 8th from the 8th, that's when the crisis actually happen if we do just that. And by the way, because of this combination 8th from the 8th, I have found that people who have a lot of third house placements or third house emphasis in their chart, that they usually will fare better if they are self-employed. So this is one of the meanings that that points to just that, because of this combination 8th from the 8th. And it is also talking about 8th house talks about intimacy, which includes orgasms as well. So the 8th from the 8th can also be talking about people experiencing intimacy, or in some literal form, orgasms, when we merge with another. Okay. And 8 divisional houses away can also be talking about deep emotional exchange with other people. And this may actually enhance one's trust into the unknown, that enables us to regenerate 8th from the 8th. So this is a little bit more, this combination is slightly harder to explain, because you got to combine 2 facets of the 8th house in order to derive in a way so that we end up with the third, right? So now let's move on to our area of concern being the 7th house. So if we count from the seventh house, we gotta count 9 divisional houses so that we actually end with the 3rd house as the resultant one. This can be talking about the adaptation or the changes that's needed for one's relationships and partnerships to work. This is one of the more straightforward ones. And it can also be talking about the religious or spiritual beliefs or philosophies of one's partner, be it personal or business-wise as well. It may also bring a philosophical attitude or perspective to one's significant relationships. Ninth from the seventh. But this may also describe someone who has a foreign spouse or partner, because anything that's 9 divisional houses away can represent someone that's foreign, or someone that's raised different than you, or someone who is essentially culturally foreign to you. So that's why ninth from the seventh, in which we end up with the third, this may talk about foreign spouse or partner. This may also be talking about cultural background becoming an issue within the sphere of marriage and partnerships as well, just to put it out there. And if we actually move forward so that our area of concern becomes or starts with the sixth house. So the sixth house is 10 houses away, or 10 divisional houses away from the third. So it's the 10th from the 6th. This is what we are looking at in terms of combination. This can be talking about something that's inherited via the maternal figure or mother that contributes to the repertoire of talents and abilities. That's in essence about the 6th house. So something that's inherited via the mother or maternal figure, this is really the 10 divisional houses away. And the second part of the sentence contributes to the repertoire of talents and abilities. This is coming from the 6th house in essence, because the 6th house really talks about our proficiencies. It can also be talking about success in a career or vocation or profession, may come from one's skills and style of working. One's skills and style of working, this is really the essence of the 6th house. And another combination can be the credit and standing of one's servants, employees, and also hired help. Servants, employees, and hired help are very much talking about the 6th house energy. And credit and standing of someone is 10 divisional houses away. So 10th from the 6th. And last but not least, this can also be talking about the profession and reputation of one's tenant. The 6th house can also be talking about tenants. If you have rented out your property to someone, in the form of an Airbnb, for example, the tenants are described by the 6th house in essence. And if we move on to start off with our area of concern being the 5th house. So from the 5th house, it is 11 divisional houses away to hit the 3rd house or the resultant house that we want for this episode. So essentially is the 11th from the 5th. This is what we are trying to combine the meanings of in terms of derivative houses. So the 11th from the 5th. This can be the sphere of influence of one's children, particularly the firstborn, which is the 5th house in essence. This can also be talking about the friends of one's children in general, but we can also be more particular, emphasizing the firstborn because of the 5th house again. And the 11th from the 5th, this may also be talking about future hopes and dreams or aspirations involving sports and speculation as well. 11th from the 5th, the 11th part can be talking about a fanatical person of sorts. The fifth. So this can be a fanatic of one's hobbies or downtime interests. And last but not least, 11th from the fifth can be talking about bringing awareness socially or trends to one's children. So last but not least, the last combination here, we will start from the area of concern being the fourth house. And it is 12 divisional houses away in order for us to reach the third house. So it's the 12th from the fourth. Anything that's 12 divisional houses from itself, this may represent sorrows, losses of, or grief through one's relationship to paternal figures in our lives growing up. And the fourth house can also be talking about one's mother-in-law as well. So if I were to say again in one long sentence, this is the sorrows, losses, and grief through one's relationship to a paternal figure or one's mother-in-law. Okay? And anything that is 12 divisional houses away can be the loss of something, like I mentioned right before this. And from the fourth, this can be a sense of belonging or roots. So that's why the third house from this derivative houses meaning can be a significator for someone moving, because there's a loss of belonging or roots in this case. So this really talks about a sign of relocation to somewhere else. When we talk about the third house, and anything that is 12 divisional houses away can be talking about a psychic link to something or someone. From the fourth, this can be one's paternal figure or father figure that one grew up with. So if someone has a psychic link to one's paternal figure, this may actually come from the third house, because it's actually 12 divisional houses from the fourth. And anything that's 12 divisional houses away can be also talking about dreams as well. And the fourth house can be talking about one's emotional security. So if I were to combine the meaning into one sentence, the 12th from the fourth, this can be talking about dreams that may affect one's emotional security. Anything that is 12 houses away can also be talking about self-undoing tendencies. The fourth house, which is our area of focus, can be talking about cultural ties or lineage, family, and also ancestral roots as well. So the third house, which is the 12th from the fourth, this can be talking about self-undoing tendencies or self-destructive tendencies that may come through one's cultural roots or ties, or familial roots and ties, or ancestral roots as well. The fourth house can also be talking about one's DNA as well, by the way. I just want to put it up front and forth. Last but not least, this can also be talking about practicing prayer and meditation in the privacy and comfort of one's home. So anyone that's got a third house that's prominent, this may also be someone who does a lot of such activities in order for inner stillness to come in the comfort of their own home and the privacy of their own home. And so with this will conclude this episode. And for upcoming episodes, if you want to have an early access to it, you may want to consider joining this YouTube as a member, and the link will be in the description box below. So till next time, see you soon.